Every night, the king swears he will remember me. Every morning, he forgets, and every dawn, I am forced to watch the man I love look at me like I am nothing. He does not know my name. He does not recognize my face. When I pass him in the corridors, his eyes slide over me, the way they do over servants and shadows, empty, indifferent, cold. But at night, something changes. At night, he finds me in the library. He stands too close. He speaks too softly, and he looks at me like I am a wound he cannot stop touching. He asks me questions he will not remember asking. He makes promises he will not remember making. And when the dawn comes, it steals him from me all over again. 3 years. 3 years I have loved a man who forgets me every sunrise. 3 years I have kept his secrets, guarded his library, and waited for him to remember what we were. Because the truth is, he cursed himself to forget me. He did it to save my life. And now I am trapped in a love story that begins every night and dies every morning. My name does not matter. I am the library keeper, and I am no one to the king who once loved me enough to destroy himself. Chapter 1. By the 5th bell, the palace was already stirring. In a small chamber beneath the eastern tower, the library keeper opened her eyes. She did not move, not yet. She lay still beneath rough wool blankets, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the stone the way other women count prayers. 17, there were always 17. Her body had learned to dread the sunrise, to pull itself from sleep in those last dark moments when the world was still soft and the curse had not yet done its work. But dawn came anyway. It always came. Somewhere in the east wing, the king was waking. She did not need to see it. She had memorized his mornings long ago, the way the servants would rush forward, the way he would rise without warmth, the way he would walk to his council chamber and not think of her, not once. She knew his routine, the way widows know grief, by heart without wanting to. That was the nature of the curse, clean, complete, cruel. Her chamber was small, a bed, a desk, a wardrobe holding 3 identical grey dresses. She did not need beauty. She needed only to be invisible, forgettable, beneath the notice of anyone who might wonder why the king's eyes sometimes followed her without permission. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her dress. The fabric scratched against her skin. She pinned her hair without looking in the mirror. She knew what she would see. A woman who had been erased. 3 years of mornings had taught her that much. The library sprawled beneath the eastern tower, like a sleeping beast. Endless shelves climbed toward shadows that candlelight never quite reached. The air smelled of dust, candle wax and something older, something that hummed beneath the stone like a second heartbeat. Pages rustled somewhere deep in the stacks, wind through a cracked window perhaps, or something else, something watching. She had tended this place for 3 years. She knew every shelf, every secret, every door that should not be opened. The books did not forget her. That was something. At the entrance, she paused. Her fingers brushed the edge of the doorframe. 3 small taps, barely audible. She had done it every morning since the curse began. She did not remember when it started, or why. Only that she could not seem to stop. Her hand fell away. She did not let herself think about who she was waiting for. She was deep in the eastern stacks, shelving texts on pre-war cartography, when she heard the footsteps. Her hands froze on the book she was holding. Not servant footsteps, too deliberate. Not scholar footsteps, no hesitation between the shelves. These footsteps belonged to someone who knew exactly where he was going. He never came in the morning. Never. But the footsteps grew louder, echoing through the stacks like a drum beat. She turned around, and her breath caught. The king stood at the end of the aisle. Morning light caught him through the high windows. Black velvet coat, dark hair swept back, a face carved from stone and silence. He had been softer once, warmer. The curse had changed him in ways neither of them fully understood, but his eyes were the same. Dark as ink, deep as wells. Those eyes settled on her now, and there was nothing in them. No recognition, no warmth, nothing. You are the library keeper, he said. His voice was flat, distant. Yes, Your Majesty. I need a book, a text on memory curses, specifically curses that target a single memory while leaving the rest intact. Her heart stopped, then started again, too fast, pounding against her ribs. He was searching for answers. He did not know that she was what he had lost. Memory curses, she repeated carefully. Is there a problem? 1,000 problems, 1,000 truths she could not speak. No problem, Your Majesty. Follow me. She led him to the restricted section. 3 locks, 3 keys, all hanging on a chain against her heart. Click, click, click. She felt his gaze on her back, heavy, searching. He noticed everything. The way her hands moved, the way she avoided his eyes, the way her breath came too fast. The final door opened, dust motes swirled in thin light. She stepped into the dark. He followed. The book he needed was on the highest shelf. She reached for the ladder, but he moved faster. His arm extended past hers, his chest inches from her back. His breath stirred the hair at her temple. He smelled of sandalwood and ink. After everything, he still smelled the same. This one. His voice was low, rough. Yes, he did not move. The silence stretched. Then he stepped back. Have we met before? The question hit her like a blade. 6 times. He had asked her 6 times in 3 years. Each time, something in him surfaced. Some shadow, some fracture in the curse. And each time, she had to stand there and lie. Each time, she had to watch his face as the question faded and took nothing with it. She knew exactly how his frown would soften. She knew exactly how his eyes would dim. She had memorized this moment, the way she had memorized his mornings. It never hurt less. No, Your Majesty, I am only the library keeper. He frowned. Something flickered in his eyes, a shadow, a crack. Then it sealed shut. Forgive me, I have been sleeping poorly. He turned and walked away. His footsteps faded through the library until they vanished entirely. She sank to the floor, back pressed against ancient shelves, hands covering her face. She did not cry. She had stopped crying in the first year. But she sat there in the dark, with the weight of 3 years pressing down. Later, at her desk, she found it, a folded piece of paper, tucked beneath the book she had not left there. The handwriting was his, sharp, heavy, certain. 3 words. I dreamed you. She opened the bottom drawer. Inside lay dozens of notes just like this. 1. Questions, confessions, desperate pleas he did not remember writing. His mind forgot her every dawn. Something deeper refused to let go. She added the note to the others and closed the drawer. That night, as she shelved the last manuscript, she felt it, a shift in the air, a prickle at the back of her neck. The candles flickered, shadows deepened. He was coming. Chapter 2. He came to her in the dark. She heard him before she saw him, footsteps slow and uncertain, so different from the morning's deliberate stride. At night, something in him loosened. The king retreated, and what remained was a man searching for something he could not name. She did not turn around. She kept her hands on the book she was shelving, kept her breath steady, kept her back to the aisle, where his shadow stretched long against the stone floor. You are still here, he said. His voice was different at night, softer, almost wondering. I am always here, Your Majesty. Yes. A pause. I know. She closed her eyes. He did not know. That was the cruelty of it. Every night, he knew her in pieces. A feeling, a pull, a shape in the dark that drew him without reason. And every morning, those pieces scattered like ash. She turned. He stood at the end of the aisle, half in shadow. The candles caught the lines of his face, the hollows beneath his eyes. He looked tired. He always looked tired at night, as if the curse exhausted him in ways he did not understand. The book I took this morning, he said. I read it. Her heart stuttered. And it describes a curse that severs a single memory from the mind, cleanly. completely. The victim does not know anything is missing. His eyes found hers. They feel only absence, a shape where something used to be. She could not breathe. Does that sound familiar to you? He asked. Yes. It sounds like every morning for 3 years. It sounds like watching you look through me. It sounds like being erased. I would not know, Your Majesty. I am only the library keeper. He stepped closer. You say that often, because it is true. Is it? He was too close now. She could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands curled at his sides, as if fighting something. The candlelight flickered, and for a moment his expression shifted. Not cold, not distant, but desperate. I have been dreaming, he said quietly. Every night for weeks, the same face, the same voice. I wake with the taste of a name I cannot remember, and an ache in my chest that nothing explains. She could not speak. Her throat had closed around words she was not allowed to say. I think the curse is real, he continued. I think someone has been taken from me, and I think... He stopped. His gaze moved over her face, searching. I think you know more than you admit. The silence stretched. Her hands went still at her sides. Something in her chest tightened, the same reflex that had lived in her body since the first year, when confession had earned her only confusion and pity, and a forgetting so complete it had nearly broken her. I know only books, Your Majesty. Her voice came out steady, though her hands were shaking. If you seek answers about curses, I can guide you to the texts, but I cannot tell you what you have lost. His jaw tightened. Cannot or will not? Does it matter? For a long moment he simply looked at her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. Then something in them cracked, just slightly, just enough for her to see the man beneath the king. It matters to me, he said softly. Her hand rose before she could stop it. Her fingers reached toward his jaw, toward the place she had touched 1,000 times in another life. She watched her own hand move, as if it belonged to someone else, trembling in the candlelight, close enough to feel the warmth of his skin. She stopped. Her hand fell. She stepped back. It is late, Your Majesty. You should rest. His expression shuttered. The crack sealed. The king returned. Yes, he said flatly. I should. He turned and walked away, and she let him go. She had learned that lesson long ago. Holding on only made the losing worse. She did not sleep that night. She sat at her desk, the drawer open before her, reading his notes by candlelight. Dozens of them. Years of longing in his own hand. None of it remembered. Why do I see your face when I close my eyes? I woke weeping today. I do not know why. There is a woman in my dreams. She never tells me her name, but I think I would die for her. The candle burned low. The shadows grew long. She added his words to the others and closed the drawer. In the morning, she heard the news from a passing servant. The king had summoned Lord Aldrich, his chief advisor. They had spoken for an hour behind closed doors. When Aldrich emerged, his face was pale and his hands were trembling. By midday, guards had been posted at the library entrance. She noticed them when she returned from the east stacks, 2 men in palace armor, their eyes following her as she passed. They said nothing. They did not need to. By afternoon, a summons arrived. A page brought it on a silver tray, his face carefully blank. The library keeper was to report to the council chamber at once. She was to bring all records pertaining to memory magic, curse breaking, and the royal bloodline. She stood in the center of the library, the summons in her hand, and felt the ground shift beneath her. He was searching, digging, pulling at threads the court had buried long ago. And somewhere in the palace, powerful men were growing afraid. She gathered the records. She pinned her hair. She walked toward the council chamber, carrying secrets that could bring down a kingdom. If you felt what Corvina felt in that moment, carrying everything, walking toward the thing that could end her, stay with me. Subscribe now, because what waits behind those council doors changes everything. Chapter 3. The council chamber was cold. Not the cold of winter or stone, but something older, something deliberate, the kind of cold that reminded those who entered that they were small, and the men who sat at the long table were not. She stood before them, the records heavy in her arms. 7 men, 7 faces carved from ambition and caution. Lord Aldrich sat at the center, his pale hands folded on the table, his eyes never quite meeting hers. To his left sat Lord Varon, master of the royal treasury, whose family had held power since before the current dynasty. To his right, the others, lords and advisors whose names she knew, but whose allegiances shifted like smoke. The king was not present. She had expected that. They would not want him here for this. "You are the library keeper," Lord Aldrich said. It was not a question. "Yes, my lord. You have served in the royal library for 3 years." "Yes, my lord. And in that time, you have had access to the restricted archives, texts on blood magic, curse work, the old bindings." She kept her voice steady. "It is my duty to preserve and protect all texts in the collection, my lord. I do not choose what the library holds." Lord Varon leaned forward. His eyes were sharp, assessing. "But you read them. I catalogue them." "That is not what I asked." The silence stretched. She felt the weight of their attention, like hands pressing against her chest. "I have read some of them," she admitted. "Understanding the texts helps me preserve them properly." Lord Aldrich's fingers tightened on the table. The king has developed an unusual interest in memory curses. He has requested texts that have not been touched in decades. He has asked questions that make certain members of this council uncomfortable. She said nothing. "We believe," Aldrich continued, "that someone has been feeding him information, guiding his research, encouraging him to dig into matters that are best left buried. I have done nothing but fulfill his requests, my lord." "Have you?" Lord Varon's voice was soft, dangerous. "The king visits the library at night, alone. He speaks to you." Her heart pounded. They had been watching. Of course, they had been watching. "He is the king," she said carefully. "I cannot refuse him entry. No, but you can refuse to answer his questions." Varon's smile did not reach his eyes. "You can guide him away from certain texts. You can protect him from knowledge that might destabilize him." The meaning was clear. They wanted her to lie to him, to misdirect him, to keep him blind and compliant, while they maintained their grip on the throne. "The king seeks answers about his own mind," she said quietly, "about gaps in his memory that he cannot explain. You are asking me to help you keep those gaps in place." The temperature in the room dropped further. Lord Aldrich's expression hardened. "We are asking you to remember your position, library keeper. You serve at the pleasure of this council. Your appointment can be revoked. Your access can be removed. You can be sent somewhere far from the capital, where your particular knowledge would be less dangerous." Threat, clear and unmistakable. She thought of the notes in her drawer, the desperate words he did not remember writing, the way his hand had almost reached for her last night, stopped by a curse he did not understand. She thought of what it would mean to leave him, to let these men keep him in darkness forever. "I understand, my lord," she said. Aldrich studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. "Good. You will continue your duties. You will assist the king with his research, within appropriate limits, and you will report to this council if his inquiries become troubling. You are dismissed." She gathered the records they had not bothered to examine and walked toward the doors. Her legs felt weak. Her hands trembled against the leather bindings. She had almost reached the threshold when Varon spoke again. "Library keeper." She stopped, did not turn. "The curse that binds the king's memory is very old," he said softly, "and very thorough. It was designed by men who understood that some things must be forgotten for the good of the realm. Men who are still alive, still watching." She turned her head, just enough to see his face. "If someone were to interfere with that curse," he continued, "the consequences would be severe for everyone involved." She held his gaze for one heartbeat. "2. I understand, my lord." She walked out, the doors closed behind her. She did not return to the library. Instead, she climbed up narrow stairs, through servants' passages, past guards who did not question a woman in grey wool carrying old books. She climbed until she reached the upper corridors, where the air grew colder and the silence grew heavier, where the king's private chambers waited behind doors that no servant entered without summons. She should not be here. She knew that, but she kept climbing. At the top of the final stair, she stopped. A single door stood before her, heavy oak, iron-banded, carved with symbols she recognized from the oldest texts in her library. Symbols of binding, of forgetting, of severance. They had built the curse into his very door. She pressed her hand to the wood. It was cold, so cold. Behind it, she could hear movement, the scrape of a chair, the turn of a page. He was in there, alone, searching through texts that would never give him what he sought, because what he sought was standing on the other side of his door, forbidden to speak, forbidden to touch, forbidden to exist in his memory. Her forehead touched the wood. "I'm still here," she whispered. "I'm still waiting." She did not expect an answer, but on the other side of the door, the movement stopped. Silence, then footsteps, slow, approaching. The handle began to turn. He stood in the frame, silhouetted by candlelight. His coat was gone, his sleeves were rolled to the elbows, his dark hair fell across his forehead, disordered, as if he had been running his hands through it for hours. He looked at her, and his expression shifted. Confusion first, then recognition of a different kind. Not memory, something deeper, something the curse could not quite reach. "You," he said, "Your Majesty." Not one she could speak aloud. She had climbed without thinking, drawn by something stronger than reason, and now she stood before him with no excuse and no escape. "I was summoned to the council," she said. "I am returning to the library." "This is not the path to the library." "No." He studied her. The candlelight caught the hollows of his face, the tension in his jaw. He looked exhausted. He looked like a man who had been fighting something invisible for a very long time. "You are lying," he said quietly. "You came here deliberately." She could not deny it. The truth sat between them like a living thing. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I heard the council threaten to bury you deeper, because I am tired of being no one, when I used to be everything." "I do not know," she whispered. "I do not know why I came." He stepped back. The door opened wider. "Come in." It was not a request. His chambers were nothing like she remembered. Once, there had been warmth here, books stacked on every surface, a fire burning low, blankets tangled on the bed where they had lain together, talking until dawn, pretending the world outside did not exist. Now the room was sparse, cold. The fire had burned to embers. The books were gone, replaced by scrolls and documents spread across a desk in the corner. Maps covered one wall, trade routes, borderlines, military positions. The room of a king who trusted no one and slept little. He closed the door behind her. The click of the latch was very loud. "The council summoned you," he said. "What did they want?" "To question me about your research." "And?" She turned to face him. "They want me to misdirect you, to guide you away from certain texts, to keep you blind." His expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. "And will you?" "No." The word came out before she could stop it, before she could weigh the consequences or calculate the cost. He moved closer. "You would defy the council. For what? For books? For principle? For you? For the man you used to be? For the love you gave up so I could live? For truth," she said. "You deserve to know what was taken from you." He stopped an arm's length away. His gaze moved over her face, searching, always searching, as if her features held answers he could not quite read. "What was taken from me?" he asked. "Tell me." Her heart pounded. Her hands trembled at her sides. 3 years of silence pressed against her throat, demanding release. "I cannot. Cannot." That word again. His voice hardened. "Everyone in this palace speaks to me in half-truths and evasions. The council, The servants, the lords who smile while they sharpen their knives behind my back. And now, you. It is not the same. Then explain it to me. He stepped closer still, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, smell the sandalwood and ink that clung to his skin. Explain why I dream of a woman I have never met. Explain why I wake with her name on my lips and cannot remember it by the time I open my eyes. Explain why, when I look at you, something in my chest aches as if it is breaking. She could not breathe. You know, he said, you know everything. I see it in your face every time I ask. You know who she is. You know what I lost. Yes. Tell me. She closed her eyes. The word sat on her tongue. Heavy as stone. One word and the curse might crack. One word and he might remember. One word and everything would change. But she had spoken that word before. In the first year, when hope was still fresh and the grief was still raw, she had told him everything. Their love, the curse, the sacrifice he had made. She had wept in his arms and begged him to remember. By morning, he had looked at her with the eyes of a stranger. The curse did not allow truth to survive the dawn. It swallowed her words like water swallowing stone, leaving no ripple, no trace. I cannot tell you, she whispered, not because I do not want to, because it will not matter. What do you mean? She opened her eyes. The pain in his face was unbearable. The curse, she said carefully. It does not simply make you forget. It erases. Every time someone speaks the truth to you, the curse consumes it. By morning, the words are gone. The knowledge is gone. You wake as if the conversation never happened. He went still. How do you know this? Because I have watched you forget me more times than I can count. Because I am the woman in your dreams, and you are standing close enough to touch me, and you still do not know my name. I have read the texts, she said. The curse was designed to be unbreakable. The more you learn, the more it takes. The harder you fight, the deeper it buries. His jaw tightened. Then how do I break it? I do not know. You must know something. You have spent 3 years in that library. You have access to texts that no one else can read. He stopped. His eyes narrowed. 3 years. She did not move. The curse began 3 years ago, he said slowly. I remember, or I think I remember, the council telling me I had been ill, a fever, a collapse. They said I lost several weeks of memory. They said it was nothing unusual, that it would return in time. He stepped closer, but it did not return. And you arrived at the library 3 years ago, did you not? Her silence was answer enough. Who are you? His voice dropped low, rough, dangerous. Who are you really? She should deflect, evade, protect them both from a truth the curse would only steal again. But she was tired, so tired of being no one, so tired of watching him reach for her without knowing why. I am the woman in your dreams, she said quietly. I am the name you cannot remember. I am the reason you wake weeping and do not know why. He stared at her. You loved me once, she continued. Her voice cracked, but she did not stop. You loved me enough to let them curse you. You chose to forget me so that I could live. And every morning for 3 years, I have watched you look at me with empty eyes and pretend that I am no one. The silence stretched. His face was pale. His hands hung at his sides, motionless. That is not possible, he whispered. It is true. I would remember. If I loved someone, if I loved anyone, I would remember. You do remember. She stepped closer. Every night you find your way to the library. Every night you leave me notes you do not recall writing. Every night your body remembers what your mind cannot. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded paper. One of his notes, worn soft from reading. She pressed it into his hand. You wrote this last week, she said. Read it. He looked down at the paper. His fingers trembled as he unfolded it. I dreamed you. His breath caught. I do not remember writing this, he said. I know, but it is my hand. Yes. He looked at her, and for the first time in 3 years, she saw something other than confusion in his eyes. She saw recognition. Not complete, not whole, just a crack, a fracture in the wall the curse had built. "Who are you?" he asked again, but this time, it was not a demand. It was a plea. She reached up, her fingers brushed his jaw, the first time she had touched him since the night before the curse. "My name is Corvina," she said softly, "and I have been waiting for you to remember." His eyes widened, the crack deepened, and somewhere in the distance, dawn began to break. His hand caught her wrist, not hard, not demanding, but certain, as if he was afraid she might vanish if he let go. "Corvina," he repeated. The sound of her name in his voice broke something in her chest. He had not spoken it in 3 years. She had forgotten how it sounded, rough and reverent, like a prayer he had been holding without knowing the words. "Say it again," she whispered. "Corvina." Her eyes burned. She blinked and felt tears slip down her cheeks. "You remember?" "No." His grip tightened. "I do not remember. But when I say your name, something shifts. Something that has been wrong for a very long time feels less wrong." The crack in the curse, she could almost feel it, a fissure in the wall that had separated them, thin as spider silk, but real. "We do not have much time," she said. "Dawn is coming. When the sun rises, the curse resets." His voice was flat. "I forget everything. I forget you." "Yes." He released her wrist. For a terrible moment she thought he would step back, close himself off, retreat into the cold king who did not know her. Instead, he pressed his palm to the side of her face. "Then tell me," he said. "Tell me everything. If I am going to lose it by morning, I want to know what I am losing." She told him everything. Their meeting, their love, the ultimatum, the curse. She spoke until her voice cracked and her hand shook, and he listened without interrupting, as if every word was something he had been starving for. When she finished, silence filled the room. His hand had not left her face. His thumb traced the line of her cheekbone, slow and wandering. "I chose to forget you," he said. "Yes." "To save your life." "Yes." "And you stayed." Her voice cracked. "I could not leave you." He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. The searching confusion was gone. In its place was grief, raw and vast and older than 3 years. "I remember," he whispered. Her heart stopped. "What?" "Not everything. Not clearly, but I remember. Fragments. Your face in candlelight. Your voice reading to me in the dark." His voice broke. "I remember loving you. I remember it, like a wound that never healed." The curse was cracking. She could feel it now, a pressure building in the room, a tremor in the air. The magic that had bound his memory was old and deep, and it did not want to release him. "Cassian," she said. She had not spoken his name aloud in 3 years. It felt dangerous, sacred. "If you remember, the curse might break, but I do not know what that will cost you." "I do not care. You should. The men who designed this curse, they are still alive. If you remember, they will come for you, for both of us." His jaw hardened. The grief in his eyes sharpened into something colder. The king, emerging through the cracks. "Let them come." The candles flickered, the fire flared and died. A sound filled the room, low, resonant, like a bell ringing beneath the earth. Cassian staggered. His hand fell from her face. He pressed his palms to his temples, his breath coming ragged. "Cassian, I remember," he choked out. "I remember everything. The curse, the night I chose it, the way you looked at me." His voice broke into something between a sob and a scream. The magic was fighting back. Dark tendrils writhed at the edges of his vision, shadows crawling along the walls. The curse had been designed to hold, to destroy anything that threatened its grip. "You have to stop," she said desperately. "It will kill you." "No." His hands found her arms, gripping hard enough to bruise. "I will not forget you again." I would rather die. Cassian, the door exploded inward. Guards poured into the room. Lord Aldrich followed, his pale face twisted with fury. Seize her, he commanded. Hands grabbed her shoulders. She fought, twisting, screaming his name. But there were too many. They wrenched her arms behind her back and dragged her towards the door. Cassian was still on the floor, still shuddering, still bleeding shadows from his eyes. He did not rise. Take her to the cells, Aldrich said. His voice was calm, satisfied. The king will not remember her by morning. He never does. Corvina stopped fighting. The words landed like stones. He was right. Even if Cassian survived, Dawn would steal it all away. She would be no one again. A stranger in a grey dress. 3 years of waiting, and it ended here. She had lost. Then Cassian rose. He should not have been able to stand. The curse was tearing through him. Black veins crawling up his neck, shadows bleeding from his eyes. He looked like something from a nightmare, something that could burn the world. Release her, he said. His voice was not human. It was layered, echoing with something ancient. Lord Aldrich stepped back. Fear flickered across his face. Your Majesty, you are unwell. The curse is breaking. Cassian stepped forward. The shadows writhed around him. And when it breaks, I will remember everything. Every lie you told me, every truth you buried, every night I wept for someone I could not name, while you watched and said nothing. The guards hesitated. Release her, Cassian repeated, or I will tear this castle apart, stone by stone. One guard let go, then another. Corvina stumbled forward, and Cassian caught her. His arms wrapped around her, shaking, desperate, burning with fever and magic. You, he breathed against her hair. You are the key. You were always the key. She pulled back. The black veins were spreading. His eyes were more shadow than iris. What do you mean? The curse was built around you. If I remember you fully, if I hold on to you and refuse to let go, the curse will break. Yes. And what happens to you? He smiled. It was a terrible smile, broken, uncertain. I do not know, but I would rather risk oblivion than forget you for one more dawn. He kissed her. The world shattered. Light exploded through the room. Not candlelight, but something older, something that burned without heat. The shadows screamed as they dissolved. The curse was dying. She felt it unravel, threads of dark magic snapping one by one. 3 years of forgetting, collapsing like a tower with its foundation removed. And through it all, he held on to her. When the light faded, the room was silent. The guards were unconscious. Lord Aldrich stood in the doorway, pale and trembling, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. This is not over, he said quietly. Then he turned and disappeared. Dawn light crept through the window. Corvina pulled back, her heart in her throat. Cassian opened his eyes. They were clear. No shadows, no confusion. He looked at her, and for the first time in 3 years, he truly saw her. Corvina, he said. Her name, spoken with full recognition, with memory, with love. You remember, she whispered. He pulled her close. I remember everything. Chapter 6. The sun rose. Corvina watched it through the shattered window, her body still pressed against Cassian's chest. Golden light spilled across the floor, painting the destruction in soft colors. The unconscious guards, the scattered debris, the scorch marks where shadows had crawled and died. Dawn. The word had been a death sentence for 3 years. Every sunrise had stolen him from her, erased her from his mind, reset the curse like a clock wound backward. She had learned to dread the light the way sailors dread storms. But this dawn was different. Cassian's arms tightened around her. His breath was warm against her hair. His heart beat steady beneath her palm, too fast, still recovering, but alive, present, remembering. You are still here, she whispered. Yes, you remember me. I remember everything. His voice was rough, scraped raw by magic and grief. Every morning I woke with an ache I could not name. Every night I wandered the library searching for something I could not find. Every note I wrote and did not remember writing. She pulled back to look at his face. The black veins were gone. His eyes were clear, dark and deep and full of something she had not seen in 3 years. Recognition. I read them, she said. The notes. I kept every one. I know. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. Some part of me always knew. Even when I could not remember your face, I remembered that someone was missing, that I was incomplete. Her eyes burned. She had spent 3 years being no one, being invisible, being the woman who watched from the shadows, while the man she loved searched for her without knowing what he had lost. Now he was looking at her like she was the only real thing in the world. What happens now? She asked. His expression hardened. The softness in his eyes did not disappear, but something colder rose beneath it. The king, the man who had been manipulated and controlled and kept blind for 3 years. Now, he said quietly, I find out exactly what they did to me, and I make them answer for it. The palace was in chaos. Word had spread quickly. The king had collapsed. There had been an explosion of light. Lord Aldrich had been seen fleeing the upper corridors. Servants whispered in corners. Guards moved in tight formations, unsure whose orders to follow. The council had scattered like rats before a flood. Cassian walked through it all, with Corvina at his side. He had not released her hand since they left his chambers. His grip was firm, almost bruising, as if he was afraid that letting go would send her back into the invisible nothing she had been. She understood. She felt the same fear, that this was a dream, that she would wake to another empty dawn, that the curse would somehow return and steal him again. But the sun climbed higher, and he did not forget. They reached the throne room. The doors stood open. Inside, a handful of councillors had gathered, lesser lords, functionaries, men who had not been powerful enough to flee, but were too important to ignore. They fell silent as Cassian entered. He did not sit on the throne. He stood before it, Corvina beside him, and let them look. Lord Aldrich, he said. Where is he? One of the councillors, a thin man with grey hair and nervous hands, stepped forward. Your Majesty, Lord Aldrich departed the palace an hour ago. He took a small guard and rode east. We do not know. He ran. Cassian's voice was flat. He helped design the curse that stole 3 years of my life, and when it broke, he ran. The councillors exchanged glances. Fear rippled through the room. Your Majesty, another man began. We were not aware of the full extent of... You were aware enough. Cassian's gaze swept the room. You knew I was cursed. You knew something had been taken from me. You watched me suffer and said nothing, because my suffering kept you in power. Silence. That ends now. He turned to the captain of the guard, a tall woman with a scarred face who had been standing near the doors, watching. Send riders after Aldrich. I want him found and brought back to face judgment. Anyone who assisted in the creation or maintenance of the curse is to be detained and questioned. The court mages, the council members who knew, the servants who carried messages, all of them. The captain nodded and departed. Cassian looked at the remaining councillors. You will cooperate fully with the investigation. Anyone who attempts to flee or destroy evidence will be treated as a conspirator. One of the men cleared his throat. Your Majesty, with respect, the curse was designed to protect the crown. The relationship you had with the library keeper was deemed unsuitable. The council acted in what it believed to be the kingdom's best interest. Corvina felt Cassian go still beside her. Unsuitable, he repeated. She is a commoner, Your Majesty, a servant, the bloodline. Cassian released Corvina's hand. He stepped forward, and the councillor stepped back. You stole my memory. You stole my love. You let me wander for 3 years feeling broken, and you tell me it was for the bloodline. The councillor's face went pale. Your Majesty, get out. Your Majesty, please, all of you, get out, now. They fled, the doors closed behind them, and the throne room fell silent. Corvina found him standing before the great window, looking out over the city. The morning light was fully risen now, flooding the room with gold. He looked tired. older than he had looked an hour ago. The weight of 3 years was settling onto his shoulders, and she could see it pressing down. She crossed the room and stood beside him. "You should rest," she said quietly. "I cannot." His voice was distant. "Every time I close my eyes, I see fragments, memories I did not know I had lost. The night I chose the curse, the look on your face when I told you what I was going to do." She said nothing. There was nothing to say. "I left you," he continued. "I walked away and let them carve you out of my mind. And I told myself it was to save you. But I also did it because I was afraid. Afraid of what the council would do. Afraid I was not strong enough to protect you. You were strong enough." "No." He turned to face her. His eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. "If I had been strong enough, I would have fought them. I would have found another way. Instead, I chose to forget, and you spent 3 years alone." She reached up and touched his face, the same gesture he had made to her countless times in the nights when he did not know why he was drawn to her. "I was not alone," she said. "You left me notes. You found your way to the library every night. Some part of you never stopped searching for me. It was not enough. It was everything." Her voice cracked. "It was the only thing that kept me alive. Knowing that somewhere beneath the curse, you still remembered. You still loved me." He closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek. She kissed it away. They stood together in the throne room as the sun climbed higher. The palace continued to buzz with chaos around them. Guards searching, counselors panicking, servants whispering. But in this room, there was only silence, only stillness. Only the two of them, finally on the same side of the curse. "What happens now?" she asked again. He looked at her. The grief was still there, but something else had risen alongside it. Determination, resolve, the cold, sharp edge of a king who had been betrayed and would not be betrayed again. "Now we rebuild," he said. "I reclaim my throne. I root out everyone who conspired against us. I make this kingdom safe. And me?" He took her hand, lifted it to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "You stay," he said, "not as the library keeper, not as a servant, as my queen." Her breath caught. "Cassian, they tried to erase you. They failed." His eyes held hers. "I will not hide you. I will not let them make you invisible again. You will stand beside me, and everyone in this kingdom will know your name." She should have argued. She should have pointed out the politics, the complications, the lords who would object, and the bloodlines that would be offended. Instead, she smiled. "Then I will stay." He pulled her close, his arms wrapped around her, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt safe, whole, seen. The dawn had come, and he remembered, if you waited through every dawn with her. Subscribe for more dark romance stories like this one, and leave a comment. Would you have waited 3 years for someone who forgot you every morning? This is Amira's Library, where the stories are dark, the love is complicated, and the endings are earned.